This isn't just any amp, it's a 1964 blonde Fender Showman, once owned by the legendary Alan Rogan. Who is Mr. Rogan? Well, he was Pete Townshend's tech for The Who for many years, and he brought this amplifier back from a US tour with The Who. Let's see if we can restore it to its legendary tone. To start off, let's just have a little look around the outside of the amplifier and see what we're dealing with. Let's just look at this awesome faceplate. I mean, come on. That's in some seriously good condition, if you ask me. And the Tolex on his finger is just stunning. It's like the earlier, thicker version, I think. I mean, I don't know that much about this era of Fender amplifiers and whether their Tolex was rougher in the beginning and then smoother towards the end. I think that's right. But if someone wants to correct me, then please do. But just look at this. So when I got it, or when I bought it originally, this had an ox blood grill cloth on with the sort of supersonic style logo, and that's because I think Alan Rogan had it matched with a cab, which I didn't buy, and the owner of it, well, he basically said that he would send me both grills. I didn't want both grills, I just wanted the original. And look at it, I mean, come on, like there's a tiny little tear here, but apart from that, this thing is absolutely stunning. It was sold to me as a 1965, but we'll check the code inside the chassis and the transformers, etc. Okay, we can see the utility plug, or whatever you call it there, for external power. I won't be using that. The ground switch, which usually has the def cap, quote unquote, on the other side of it. I'll be removing it, or at least not removing it, I'll be disconnecting it if it is connected. I'm pretty sure that's a newer style fuse holder, not sure, but we will check the fuse. The fuse is actually a 2 amp rather than a 2.5 amp slow blow. As you can see there, this is wired for American voltage 115. It's actually going to be 120, I think, coming out of my transformer. But so that's 2 amps. It should be 2.5. So we're in a better place than, you know, going higher. So I'm probably going to leave that in there. It seems to work fine. We've got a standby switch and on switches. Speaker and extension speaker. Look at that. Fender Electric Instrument Co. Fullerton, California. Love it. That's for the vibrato pedal, or tremolo, whichever you want to say. Some sort of electrical test has been passed. Yeah, don't know much about that. But next to it we can see A00387, the chassis number. And if we have a little peek inside, if I can get a picture of it, there we have our tube chart, or valve chart if you're here in the UK. And right in that top corner you can see ND. Now I believe that ND dated at 1965, but these tube charts aren't exactly accurate. I think some of them were just slapped in there or what have you. So potentially a 1965, which would be amazing. I mean, it's cream Tolex. We'll check basically as well that the chassis matches the cab, so it is the original cab and whatnot. Anyway, I think it's time to pull the chassis. Just while we're here, I can kind of see that there has been a few holes drilled for this retainer. I don't know if this is the original retainer or not, or the original screw. I'm not too au fait with that, but it certainly looks like. I know this is a nightmare to get out, so I'm really glad that this has already been changed for a 3-prong cord. Not sure if that's original, but we'll see. And I don't think that screw's original. We can see it's got Sovtech 6L6s, 4 6L6s. I think these are the most powerful amps that Fender did. Correct me if I'm wrong there in the comments, everyone. First initial inspection, just looking from behind here, it looks like it has all the original transformers. I didn't have that information when I bought it. Even though buying this amp, I've got to say, it was probably one of the best experiences. The guy I bought it from was really helpful. He was a genuine fella. He helped me out loads getting it to me, and he gave me it for a price that basically I felt like I was stealing it off him. So thank you very much for that. Right, let's get this chassis pulled. Okay, I swear I have not peeked inside, but this is the moment of truth. What are we gonna find? Oh, look at that wiring, and I can see a slight peak of orange drops. Ah, come on. So, it looks like we have a complete recapping. Every cap is now an orange drop, and most of the resistors look replaced for carbon film. There's maybe some on the inputs that aren't. And a bias supply, I'm not too sure if they're replaced over, well, it's definitely had some work done to it, but that's not a bad thing. And let's face it, it was owned by a great guitar tech, so hopefully the work's all stellar. On first impression, I mean, we've got the Sprague bypass caps in there. There's some good silver mica caps in there. The orange drops look good, but you know, I'm not keen. And it looks like the bias supply. Well, first of all, the bias supply is okay, but the actual rectifier. Now, let's see if I can pull it out a bit. You can't see it quite on camera there, so I'll get a shot of it in a minute. But the rectifier diodes are definitely going to need changing. Some of them have either melted or cracked open, so that's no good. It's amazing it was working. Right, let's get it all the way out and we'll have a proper assessment. Okay, first of all, the amp is absolutely dead, so there's no danger to myself. I have checked it. At this point, it's really important to note that I'm not an amplifier tech. What do I know about amplifiers? I work on a warship. I suggest that if you're going to open your amplifier and look inside, you check out the Fazio Electric channel. Colleen Fazio's done a great video on checking Fender amps, so then you know it's dead. Even when it's unplugged, there's lethal voltages inside. Funny story, when I built my first amplifier, it was a Brown Panel Deluxe, and I was so scared to turn it on. It was like 400 volts DC inside. I was panicking. And I said to my wife, I don't think I'm going to turn it on. And she said to me, well, what do you do on board your ship in work? What sort of voltages do you work with? And I said, 750 volts DC. And she was like, why are you panicking? Like, I don't know, because I'm not wearing my uniform, maybe. Anyway, let's get back to it. Things that I've noticed straight away is, as you can see, most of the components have been changed on the board, which doesn't really matter, I suppose. I mean, they are all serviceable components. Over here, if we can see just in this area here, we've got our diodes. They look absolutely knackered, so I will be changing them out. It looks like the one in the bias supply is okay. I'm going to try and do as little as I can in this amp, even though I know it's had loads done to it, but it's had loads done to it by someone pretty famous in my book, so I'm not going to do the one in a bias supply, because, you know, this bias cap has been changed, the bias resistor has been changed, and they didn't feel a need to change them then, and it looks in okay condition. I'm probably going to get loads of hell off the internet for not changing this, but there you go, sue me. These here have to be changed. I mean, if you can see the state of this one here, there's no getting around that. All the solder joints are all black. I don't know whether they're black because someone's put some sort, you know, Fender, I don't know if Fender put some sort of dye on there to see if anyone's been fiddling with the amps before sending them back or what, but you know, that I mean, that doesn't look original. These solder joints here look like they've been touched up to me, but I don't know enough about Fender amps to say that definitively. Over here, you can see a rather large hump in the board. Now, just off camera, I was a little bit concerned about that, and I thought, oh my god, I'm going to have to change the whole board. I don't really want to because it's the original one, blah, blah, blah. Then I had a little look at Psionic Audio, some of his videos. I've been watching him for numerous years now, and some of the amps he's worked on have had, maybe not as extreme as that, some road bumps in there, in eyelet boards, and he hasn't changed them. So if it's good enough for him, it's definitely good enough for me. What else can we see? The def cap, which would normally be underneath the ground switch here, that's been completely taken out, and now it's just part of the fuse system. So we've got our grounded cord. Now, I would have liked that earth to be longer and not go to a chassis bolt. That would have been much better, but I don't have a hot enough iron to put it to the chassis, so I'm just gonna have to live with it being there. And really, I should make that longer, so then the earth is the last thing to be pulled out. I'm not going to, because it's another thing that I have to do inside this amplifier, and I'm trying to do bare minimum. We can see the power transformer has got hot and leaked some of its internals. I think that is that lacquer or something like that. It doesn't look too bad. I've seen them a lot worse on videos. As I say, I haven't got a massive amount of experience inside these amplifiers. I think these resistors have been replaced, but been replaced for carbon comps. I mean, they don't look old to me, but maybe they are, don't know. Yeah. Let's flip it over and have a look in the doghouse. Before we lift up the doghouse, let's just check the cab. So here we have AB1564. Now, I don't know if the 64 goes towards the 64th week of the 64th year. So 1964, not sure. But what it does tell us is that if we look at our cab over here, upside down albeit, we have AB1564. That means that this chassis originally came with that cab, which means that it is indeed a Blonde Showman. That's great. Well, that doesn't mean that someone didn't re-Tolex a Blonde actually, but as far as we can tell, this is the right chassis and right cab. Now, let's have a little look at our transformers. Over here, we have 606, which is Schumacher. And then we have 343 on this one. Let's see if I can get that in camera, see if everyone agrees. Yeah, 606, 343. That means it was Schumacher, 1963, and the 43rd week of 1963. So that's a 63 power transformer, which is odd for 65, but there you go. It also has CSA test. Now, I've watched a few Yeezy videos and stuff, and I'm sure he said that CSA meant that it was the Canadian market, but don't quote me on that one. Then we're over to our choke. That says 606, so that is indeed Schumacher. 408, so that is 1964, the 8th week of 1964. If I can't hide the excitement in my voice, I'm really sorry, but the transformers are what matter to me, so I'm made up. And then our output transformer is, now there's something special about these output transformers, in that there's two different types of Showman. There's a dual Showman and a single Showman. So we'll get into that. This is 606 344. So this is also a 1963 output transformer, the 44th week. So to me, so far, this looks like it was built with two 1963 transformers and one from 64. Now, I don't know if that means 1965 or 1964. We'll have to check inside our chassis there. We've got the ND. I'll do a little double check on that and see what year or what date that correlates to, and I'll put it on the screen now. This era of Fender Showman, to my knowledge, come in two different types. The first was the normal Showman, which I have, and the second was a dual Showman. The only difference was the output transformer. Mine is set up for 8 ohms, and a dual Showman was set up for 4 ohms, and that's because my amp will have come with a piggyback cab that was 1x15, so a 15-inch JBL. A 15-inch JBL, that's mad. I'm definitely going to get one to match with this. Anyway, the dual Showman come with two 15-inch JBLs, and therefore, if they're put in series, you need a 4 ohm output transformer, and that is the only difference between the two, as far as I'm aware. If you guys know any different, please let me know in the comments. Now, we do have some also other information here. On the doghouse, we have all C&R replaced, so all caps and resistors replaced. The 7th, 2005. So, because you Americans are messed up and you do the date wrong, I'm guessing that that's July the 20th, 2005. Well, you know, that's 19 years ago. In fact, July this year, it will be 20 years ago. So these will probably need replacing again. But we shall lift it up and find out. I don't really know what this says. I can't tell. But there you go. Okay, so with what's gone on inside the chassis so far, we've seen lots of orange drops and Sprague caps. I'm assuming these are going to be the Sprague Atom blue things that most people were using round about 2005. But we shall see. Wow. So 3 Sprague Atoms for our 20 UF caps. And then we've got 2 80 UF at 450 volts these are the ones that are in series, so then it drops it down by half, so we'll have 40 UF at 900 volts there. The resistors have indeed been replaced, but I don't know what was going on here, but this resistor here is 2 resistors stacked together, so I'm assuming whoever did this work didn't have the right value resistor, and they've just created the right value. Now there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not exactly best practice, and it looks like they've just used 2 carbon film resistors instead of using these like flame proof or flame resistant resistors. I may change that if I've got the correct value, but apart from that, the work doesn't look too bad. I think I will probably be changing these out. I'm definitely going to be changing out these IC caps, because they have a bad rep, and you know, if something goes wrong with one of them, there's the potential to lose a transformer, and I'm not willing to do that. And also these Sprague atom caps, although these are probably older ones, which they are because they were changed in 2005, but lately they've had a bad rep as well, so I'm going to be changing them. I think I'll have a think on that one. These Illinois caps are 450 volts, 80 UF. On the actual drawing, they are 70 UF or 70 microfarads. Sorry to everyone who hates that, I know, I can't help myself. So 70 microfarads at 450. Well, I've actually got, in fact, on the drawing, there's 70 microfarads at 350, and I've got these MOD caps, which are indeed 70 microfarads at 350. So I think I'm going to change them. In fact, I am going to change them. There's no thinking about it. And then just to make everything in a doghouse match, I have indeed got 3 20 microfarad at 500 volt caps for our Sprague atoms. Is it Sprague or Sprague? Someone tell me in the comments. I'm so happy that these transformers, 2 of them are from 63 and 1 from 64. I can't believe it. Fantastic. What a time to be alive. Another thing to note, look how nice. I mean, the chassis here, you can see it's gone like a burnished colour. I'm imagining there's some heat in here. I mean, it's a big old amplifier, isn't it? Let's face it. And then underneath here, look how clean it looks. Just lovely to look inside these things. So now I'm just going to clean up all the eyelets. So get all of this solder out of there. And the best way to do that is by using some of this solder braid, this desolder braid. Now, everyone who's watched my channel for a while will know that I hate using this stuff for pedals, and I don't. But come on now, this is a very early Fender amp, and you know, it's worth the effort. I don't like burning my fingers on this stuff, so what I do is I buy this. It's a desolder braid. It comes in this little container so you don't burn your fingers, and then I use some of this on there, some of this flux. If you're interested in these, I'll link an affiliates link in the description so you can get some yourself if you want to use it. But basically all I do is I'll put some flux onto the braid. Then I'll wet my tip a little bit, not much. I'll lie the braid on the top of the thing that I want to remove the solder from, and then just heat the iron up over the top, and then slowly pull the braid through. And as you can see, it just removes all of the solder. And there's absolutely gobs of solder in this thing, so I may have to remove the board. I'm trying not to, but I may have to remove the board to get the solder out. Okay, so we've now changed out all of our caps for these mod caps, just to keep them all the same. The Sprague atoms and the Illinois caps are now gone. I also found a 4.7K resistor that matches this one, instead of having these piggybacked carbon film resistors. I mean, there's technically nothing wrong with that, but this is my amp, so I can do what I want. Haha. Now, just to prove that I should have changed these caps, and well, just to prove I should have, I'm going to use my little cheapo Amazon multifunction tester. If anyone wants one of these, I will of course leave an affiliates link. You can get it for no extra cost to yourself, but I do get a kickback, and that's the legal spiel out of the way. Anyway, you don't get leads on this thing. I've just kind of stuck them on. So we'll see where we're at. Remember, this is meant to be 20 microfarad. And what are we getting? Okay, so we're getting 24 microfarads with an 8.6 ESR. ESR is like the resistance, so you want a low ESR really, and 24.6, so that's 4.6 microfarad out, and you may think that's not a lot. Don't forget, this is only a 20 microfarad cap. That's like 25% out. That's a fair old bit. And so, you know, that something like that would still be good for a pedal, and I may use them in a fuzz pedal or something. That's not too bad. Right, let me see what we got for these Illinois caps. Here we go. This one's 75 microfarad. It's, well, actually we want 70 microfarad and it's down at 75, but these caps are actually 80 microfarad, so it's dropped 5 microfarad. Fair enough, not too bad. If this had been an original, I definitely wouldn't have changed it, but the fact that it was mismatched and stuff, I figured this is just better. I'm going to get this covered on and then we'll take a look at the actual circuit. One other quick note before I put the cover back on and write my own little message on the top. Does anyone know what's best to clean this up post soldering? So there's a little bit of flux on there and I'm a little bit worried. I've heard soap and water and stuff on some forums, but I don't want to knock off the wax pencil marks because I'm assuming they were put there by the factory and I'd really like to keep it. But I can see a little bit of mess on there. I'm going to give it a clean as best I can with a dry cloth and see where we get. Next, I'm going to pull out this board and replace them diodes. Okay, so we can really see a close-up now of this diode that is crumbling. It literally, pieces of it fell off as I removed the board. Now, what we can also see is the black marks on that I was saying on the solder joints is actually some sort of ink. Now, I know that Marshall used to put red dabs on their, well, on their solder joints to see if anyone had touched them. I'm wondering if this is the same. I think these should be like metal diodes, if I remember rightly. If anyone knows what these diodes are, please let me know. That'd be fantastic. Now, as far as this resistor goes, I think I'm going to keep that in place. I do think I'm going to keep that diode in, but this bias cap is 100 microfarads at 100 volts. Now, I think that these were originally 24 microfarads at 50 volts. I'm just going to check on the schematic. Okay, so we can clearly see here, which is the bias supply, we have 25 microfarad at 50 volts. Now, this is clearly too big. I mean, it wasn't doing any harm, but it was too large. And I have, funnily enough, a mod cap. I mean, look at the size of that compared to that. A mod cap, which is 50 microfarads at 50 volts. So that seems more appropriate to me. I mean, I know that this is tiny compared to that one, but I'm going to change that out. We've now replaced all of our diodes. I'll give the board a little clean. Next is this cap. The keen-eyed among you will have noticed that I made a massive mistake here. I actually put the diodes in backwards. Every single one of them, including the bias supply. That would have, well, I don't know what it would have done because I've never actually turned an amplifier on with the diodes in the wrong way. I'm assuming it would have just blew the fuse. However, I was just checking my camera after I finished filming, and when I looked back, I was like, oh my lord, they're in the wrong way round. I was talking about the anode and the cathode of each diode, and I noticed that I was completely talking rubbish. So I went back in, flipped them round. I didn't film it because it was pretty late at night and blah, 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 blah. Excuses. Hold my hands up. I made a massive mistake. I have rectified it, so there's no issue now. Now, what you will notice is that the positive side of this cap is connected here, which actually goes to the negative. And that's because it's the negative bias supply. Same with this diode. You've got your cathode going, sorry, your anode going that way and your cathode going this way. And that's because it's in the negative bias supply. Whereas these ones, we've got our positive side, our anode going out towards the circuit and negative coming back this way. This is the one bit that you can mess up. So it's worth checking your schematics. And if you've got a Showman and you can't find a layout for it, which I had a little bit of trouble, you can always look at a twin because they have the same bias supply. or the same power section for that matter. So I'm going to replace this with my mod cap. Now, I mean, the mod cap I've got is, I mean, that's tiny compared to it, isn't it? But that's all you need. And I really like that this will match the ones on the top. I was initially really upset with the fact that there's a sea of orange in here. However, after taking some stock, I figured I could at least test to see if there's anything in old blue molded caps versus orange drops. Now, what we have is, I'm going to be replacing, oh, not that one I won't, some 0.1 microfarad caps with blue molded caps. So this one here, and this one here will all be changed with blue molded caps. And we'll also check which end the outer foil should be at as per the way that Fender wired them, and I'll put them in the right way round. Now, the ones that I've got, these, first of all, these caps, before anyone tells me how stupid I am for putting these back in, these caps are ridiculously expensive. They're like £20 each. It's insane. And they all, well, in my experience, they always test good. I've used loads of these. I've bought loads secondhand for pedals and stuff, and they are fantastic. And some people say they're the sound of the amp, but we're going to find out today. So these three here are going to be them. Now, next, this one, and this one are all 47 NF, and I've got 47 NF blue molded caps to replace these three. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. And I'll do the same routine with them, make sure they're orientated properly, and so on. Now, this cap here is also a 100 NF or a 0.1 microfarad. It's at 200 volts though, and I happen to have a blue molded cap. Alright, this one's labelled Packard Bell, so it was obviously made by the same manufacturer. I'm not too sure if it was Ajax or I can't remember who made these, but it's labelled Packard Bell, but that doesn't matter, it's still the same cap, and that's a 0.1 microfarad at 200 volts. Great. Now comes the issue. The issue is these two here. I don't have another two 100 NF or 0.1 microfarad caps at 400 volts. I don't have any blue molded caps for them. And as these two are the ones that feed the, you know, that'll feed a pair of 6L6s, that'll feed a pair of 6L6s, they take the most damage, they take the most wear and tear. So I've made a compromise, and I'm going to be putting in a set of Sozo blue molded next gen caps or whatever. I've had good luck with these in amplifiers. I know it's not the original blue molded, however they are marked with the outer foil, so I will be able to put them in that way around. And you know, I don't know, I just didn't have them, and I didn't want to wait forever for them to turn up from America, and it would be 40 quid for the pair plus 20 quid shipping. That's 60 quid for two caps. I mean, I'm tempted. Believe me, the absolute hypocrisy of me changing old caps into my old amplifier and then using two brand new ones for one position isn't lost on me. I realise I just didn't have any more blue molded caps. If I had them, I would have used them. I mean, I'm still tempted by taking the ones out the doghouse and housing them in old paper things so then they look original. But whatever. This is what I'm doing. Internet's going to hate me for it. But at least we'll be able to put to bed whether it sounds any different. I almost forgot to mention, these three caps here are for the tremolo, vibrato, whatever Leo's calling it. So these are for that, and I'm not going to be changing them, mainly because I haven't got the right disc ceramic caps in stock, and sometimes they go microphonic. I know it's a contradiction because I'm literally taking the orange drops out and putting blue moldeds in, but I'm going to leave these in place. Now, I know Psionic Audio uses some blue ceramic high voltage caps. I could probably use them in there. Maybe it's one I'll do in the future, but at the moment, don't really use the vibrato anyway. I'm a pedal guy, so I'm going to leave them alone and just carry on with the coupling caps. Just because I'm bound to get someone who says that the values were off on the caps that I'm using or that I didn't test them, here is my capacitor tester, testing a blue molded cap. And as you can see, this one is 104.3 NF with a 9.2 ohm ESR. Fine. So let's test the cap that come out of that slot. So this is the orange drop. I mean, the old orange drops, they're good, but this is the orange drop that come out of there, as you can see. And that is 102 NF with a 9.2 ESR. So they are much of a muchness. And I've tested every single one of these before I've put them in. And they're pretty much bang on with the Sozo as well. So if there's a sound difference, it's not going to be from the values. If the internet didn't already hate me, they definitely will after this. So my final blue molded cap does not reach. What a shame. So I'm going to have to extend the leg. So I've basically took a perfectly good orange drop cap that with legs that reached and changed it for one with legs that didn't reach, and that's older. Ha! Oh well. So what I do is, anyway, to extend the leg of this cap, what I like to do is make a little hook with your leg. And I know people hate doing this in amplifiers, but there you go. And you take a component leg from another thing. In this case, it's my Sozo. Give it a bend. So then you've got two hooks. Marry them together. Give them a little squeeze. Then that way you have a good mechanical connection. Now I'm going to solder that. There we have it. We have all of our blue molded caps in place. I've left the tremolo circuit alone, vibrato circuit. I may change that in the future. And then we've got our two Sozo Next Gen caps fitted on the board. Next step is going to be to get all this back into the cab and give it a test. What do we think? Do we think it's going to sound better with the blue molded caps or worse? I'd like to know in the comments. Next, it's time to pit them against each other. What's going to sound better? Modern orange drops or vintage blue molded caps? One thing to note is, even if both of these types of caps sounded exactly the same, I would have absolutely did the work. Of course I would. I want an original amplifier and I wish that the original caps were still in there, but maybe they were out of tolerance. I really don't know. Or maybe Alan was using them for some sort of studio application, more than likely, and that's why he's changed them out. I don't know. But for me, I wanted it to be original, and I know the internet's going to hate me for it. I don't care. Now, onto the sound sample. Let me know in the comments if A, you can hear the difference, and B, what that difference is.